heard from the first time I heard Guru Dutt, I used to get 8 annas in when I was a kid to see Saheb Biwi Aur Ghulam because my grandmother used to take me to see it. And she loved the film because I think she also had a personal kind of a connection with the Meena Kumari story and of a large house in which she was a kind of a bahu. You know, so I mean, I think she kind of identified. So I've seen for example, I've seen Saheb Biwi Aur Ghulam, I think, when I was a kid and I didn't get it too much, I must have seen it about 25 times. Because every time as a kid it came and re-released or it was running anywhere, my grandmother would go to see it, and because nobody else went with her at that time, I saw it for very mercenary reasons. And I've seen it 25 times, yes, I must have seen the film many times. But that's the first time I encountered Guru Dutt. See, I mean, first of all, Guru Dutt is a great filmmaker. So he's a technician and a craftsman and a person who understands film technique like very few people do. People think technology is technique, but technique is the form, and the very idea of the film comes from the technique. And the emotional impact that it creates is because of the technique. And the kind of emotional impact it creates is because, and that nobody understands better than him. So I mean, I think, you know, every filmmaker, I don't think there's any filmmaker who can, in India, who will not have been inspired by Guru Dutt. And there is a kind of extreme quality in his work, you know. I mean, it's a idea of a person. I mean, a lot of people would call him impractical, foolish, romanticist. I don't know. Some people who are very bright consider themselves very bright. But you know, the idea of he's almost like a Devdasian character, you know. I mean, almost the idea of destroying yourself for an idea, for something you love, for something you care about. You know, that idea is kind of interesting in our times when, you know, everybody is only dying for the money. I mean, it's an extreme romanticist, but I mean, it's wonderful. And my favorite Guru Dutt film is a film called Saheb Biwi Aur Ghulam. So I think it's, you know, it's a story of loss, of lament, of, you know, it's also a very great story of a woman asking for her sexual right, in a sense. I don't think very few people have made films which are, I mean, even though, I mean, the end of Saheb Biwi Aur Ghulam is, I'm told, censored, or there's a kind of self-censorship involved there. But it's a very, very, you know, in a sense, it's about a celebration of sensuality and the right of sensuality, you know, in a sense. And the right for human beings to be free, to express. And I think that is the main Guru Dutt theme, you know, of everything being trapped by money, by feudal traditions, by you know, the world not allowing freedom, in a sense. And I think that's the Guru Dutt theme, which is very attractive to me personally, if you ask me. And even his lighter work is of a very high quality. And it's the way he shot songs, for instance, the rhythm of his cutting, the choreography of the entire filmmaking. It's almost, it's like the whole film has a certain rhythm, you know. And it's shot, every scene is shot like a choreographed scene, you know. So the cut is exact, the track is exact, the whole technique of the film is absolute precision, you know. I mean, a lot of people who have worked with Guru Dutt would say that he was very confused, but you know, maybe he was trying to find out what we see in the ultimate, you know, films that he has made and the films that he's involved in. You see that, and it's a very interesting quality. You know, I wish he had not acted in Saheb Biwi Aur Ghulam. No, his ability to take, for example, you know, the idea of taking in Pyasa, I mean, because Pyasa is at one end influenced by Devdas, and in a sense it is another kind of Devdas, but the whole idea of, you know, Jine Naaz hai Hind par wo kahan hai, the idea of equating a personal pain, the pain of the artist and the pain of the prostitute, and you know, that whole connections that he draws. And then it becomes like a metaphor for India and for the situation that is the most interesting quality. I think he's a very political filmmaker, personally, if you ask me, in the true sense of the word. Yeah, the best film and the best story is that which combines what has happened to you with what you have seen. That's the Persian ideal of a great story, and I think it's a very, very, very good definition of a great story, and that's a very good definition of a great filmmaker, that he combines that which has happened to him with what he has seen or heard. So his self interacts with the material, and he puts himself. So he shows us his view of our world, and that's the more interesting thing about films for me, and so it's I think that's what interests me, and that is what the Guru Dutt did, and that's why he's such a good filmmaker. No, I don't think so. But he sufficed in a lot of films. I don't think he was as good an actor, and I think his films may have been slightly better, but then he may not have been able to make those films. So in the sense that he was working in the commercial medium, he was working in the marketplace. So he needed somebody like an actor, a star, in order to get his films financed. And most of the stars were not, they had views of their own and wanted to make. By that time, I think in the 50s, late 50s, I think stardom, the star system had started getting entrenched, and they all wanted to make another kind of film, So I think he got sick with the methodology, and then he was passionate, and I think what I've heard from other people is that he got sick with the method, with the whole pandering to the ego, and he didn't quite do it, and he was stuck to films. He often shot films and threw them away. He's done many films which he just kind of threw away, because he wasn't satisfied. And I don't think everybody can follow that. It's not even fair to expect some, people to other people to understand that methodology. And every artist or filmmaker has his own methodology. So at the end, I think he did what he could, and all of us only can do what we can. And what he could do, he did very well. I don't know so much about but he knew when the close-up was necessary, because the close-up is a very dangerous thing in cinema. And a wider frame is interesting, because it allows the filmmaker or the viewer to watch the part of the frame that he gets interested in, and it's in context. The closer shot has to be used very, sparingly, and when it's actually required totally, And I think he knew how to do that. That's why, the close-up, he didn't take it for its own sake. He knew, the long shot could be the lyricism, the long shot is present. The mid shot, whatever, the way he choreographed, the way he used the track, the way he cut, the rhythm with which he cut. I think all of this is Guru Dutt. I think many people have learned filmmaking from him, and I don't think there is any Indian or at least Hindi filmmaker who was not somewhat influenced by Guru Dutt. So he taught people how to use the close-up, actually, and then when it was very essential for its emotional impact, and even there between Mr. Murthy, who was his cameraman, and him, the way they framed the close-up was very interesting. Wonderful. I think he used Vaidaji really well. She was such a spark in his films, from Saheb Biwi Aur Ghulam, another kind, from Pyasa, Kagaz Ke Phool, everything, she embodied many people for him, and it's very often happens, and I can quite understand that he found this, the lady to be able to make films through her, and he found somebody who can express his ideas best, somebody he shared a chemistry with, in the film professional sense, and it's very interesting how that the work they have done together is of an amazing quality, and I can quite get what the reason why he was so interested in her as an actress. Some filmmakers do, some filmmakers don't. Depression is a mental, medical, biological condition, I think. So, if he was unfortunate enough to suffer from that kind of ailment, it must have been much more of a struggle. I think the context in which he worked, the way the filmmaking business is so geared towards commercial success, and how it affects you when it doesn't work. Also, filmmaker himself is a kind of a nymphomaniac of the heart, and he gets when he faces rejection from people, he doesn't quite like it, because every filmmaker wants to connect with people and wants the most number of people to see his films. So I mean, I think yes. I mean, it's a sensitive soul can. It's not a place for the weak-hearted filmmaking, and you have to keep taking knocks in your stride, and you have to take every fool and his uncle telling you how to make a film. You know, and I'm sure Guru Dutt after Kagaz Ke Phool flop must have got advice from every stupid idiot walking around. You know, at that time. So I mean, I'm sure he was very depressed about a lot of things. The struggle to make a film of your kind, you know, is a very difficult one all over the world for those that want a personal kind of vision, you know. Well, you know, I mean, sometimes what is a great artist, you know, he's a mutation in his time, you know, he's ahead. He doesn't follow the norm, you know, so suddenly there is a quantum jump in a person, you know. You know, there is this filmmaking is of a certain nature. So suddenly a man comes and breaks the mold. Suddenly he's somewhere far ahead, you know. Sometimes he gets understood, sometimes mostly he doesn't. And then, you know, the quality of those great films or somebody who is a great artist is that he crosses time. Because his films are about essential human things, about loss, about freedom, about the repression of sensuality, of repression of human beings, of them, you know, caged. And these are about universal human emotions. So at the end of it, the context vanishes and it becomes about that pure emotion, about that moment. Every great film is about, you know, crosses time, because it's about a feeling. You know, it's not about, you know, the sociological, anthropological, historical context, you know. So, alone. So that's like Bicycle Thieves is about a boy and his father, and it's about a boy trying to understand his father as a human being, how his father drops from as an ideal from him and falls from grace, and then he starts relating to him as a human being. It's not about post-war Italy. Similarly, you know, Jaane Bhi Do Ghulam is not about decaying feudal. It's at the end of it about a person trapped. It's about a person trying to get out. It's about a person trying to assert her freedom. I don't know. Every person is insecure. Every artist suffers from doubts. Every person is insecure. Some hide it better. Some don't. I'm sure there must have been insecurities. I don't know him personally, but I'm sure. I mean, sometimes there's legends and there's a lot of talks about his death, but who knows? Some people even say it was an accident. Sometimes accidents happen. Sometimes, I mean, if you're used to taking some medicines and if you had too much alcohol and some combination occurs and it's an unfortunate accident, it doesn't mean that. I mean, I don't know. So since we don't know, I mean, why? I mean, there can be many conjectures, many conclusions, many, theories about it. But, I'm sure everybody, I've not yet met a person in the film industry who has no insecurities. So he must have had also. Very good film. I've often said that it is a very trashy story. I don't understand the film. I mean, when I see the story, I don't understand it at all. I mean, why? What causes them part? I mean, I don't know. It's a very, in fact, the great song "Waqt Ne Kiya Kya Hasi Sitam" is totally at a wrong time, I think. It's not a time when they parted. So, I mean, but the moments are so good and so brilliant and so well done. So if you take it in like a series of moments and you don't see it as a narrative, and you see it not in a linear way, and you see the song as a song of the imminent parting of these two people, and you see all that, and you see the end of how he falls at her feet. So there are ideas within it and images that are stunning and so beautiful that it crosses that slight non-believable, slight simplicity and simplistic quality of the story itself. And I think it crosses that and becomes a great film. So it's just sheer form that makes the film so brilliant. It's one example of a film that is purely, the content is the form, the way it has been told. Yeah, I think he was a brilliant director of actors. I think he liked them a lot. You can see a lot of warmth, and he loved human beings and characters and characterizations. And he used many of the actors, like Rahman, he used again and again, like Johnny Walker, he used again and again. I think he was a person who loved his unit and those that he worked with him and those that understood him. He worked with Wahida ji a lot, and I think he, understood, and which very few directors do, that each actor is different, and each actor there's no such thing as handling actors. There's a very famous film institute, students used to use this word, I handle actors. You don't handle actors, you work with actors. And every actor is not a generic term. There are kinds and kinds of actors. So with every actor, you work differently. They're human beings. Just as you work differently with every cameraman. So I think that's what he understood. So I think, Meena Kumari to Madhubala to Wahida Rahman to Rahman to all the other actors in his films have always been quite brilliant.